I think we can move forward. So let me introduce Oliver Lehmann. He is globally known as a top trainer in project management. His work is rooted in decades of experience in project management, professional education, and volunteering for PMI and the Project Business Foundation. His area of interest in project business management. He helps contractors manage projects as profit centers and customer engineer and lead complex networks of suppliers. Hi, Oliver.
Hi, Tyras. Hi, everyone else. Nice to be here. Sorry for the clock. I think it will end just in a second.
Yeah, just 12 times, right?
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, it's 11 o'clock here. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but it makes it a little
But you can
bit
go
more
on.
monumental, right? I mean, the whole
It's
speech in a
reality.
second.
Yeah, it's reality. I'm not at home. I'm in the house of my in-laws, and so now it's over and do it here. So actually, I'm in the library, yeah, as you can see.
Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I can share my screen. The topic for today, we have almost an hour together, is bringing money home with projects. And it's a completely different approach to project management. It's what we call project business management. It's about projects that become not just something to improve business and to enhance business somewhere and strategies and all these things. It's about bringing money home with projects. It's about projects done for paying customers. We call the whole thing here project business management, where we have projects that are cross-functional, where you have customers, you have contractors working together. By the way, one little note, I think Karen Marie is still there. A point of view from project business management. In project business, the biggest booster that you can have in project business is trust. If you have trust inside the cross-corporate project over these corporate borders, interfaces, your project can be much, much faster, much, much cheaper, much, much easier, much more, making everyone much more happy, yeah? much more satisfied, but trust the wrong people and they will rip you off. And that's also something we unfortunately see in project business. So let's have a look into, first of all, who I am. Yes, that's me. We don't want to spend too much time on that. It's all about me. It's about project business management. By the way, are you seeing the full screen of mine? Yeah, it says about Oliver now. Is it correct? Taras? Taras, do you see the full screen?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. Okay. I don't have a second screen here. At home, I have a second screen and see that, but here I don't have a second screen. So yeah, this is about me. I wrote 2 books and lots of papers meanwhile, and the focus is obviously project business management. Yeah. Followers make leaders is another topic of mine, but generally in this project business context. This is the contents of the presentation, of the short presentation that I want to do with you. First, what does it mean when we change from internal projects to customer projects? What are the big challenges in projects as business? Our focus will be here on the contractor side. There are also big challenges on the buyer side, on the customer side. We will not discuss those challenges that much and more focus on the contractor here. And I will show you what a solution, a modern solution can look like to these challenges. It will just be one of them, of course. We could spend 2 weeks on the topic, meanwhile, talking about solutions, but I don't think I have the time here. I would like to introduce you to Clara Loft. Clara is a project manager, and obviously she knows the quality of her work and the value of her work, which is not necessarily true for all project managers. Yeah? She successfully manages internal projects. She's inside an organization and helps the organization to implement strategic initiatives and bring change to the organization, developing new products, new services, all these things that internal project managers typically do. And one of the things she's very good in, she delivers on time. Again, she is, I think, quite a good project manager. Her specialty so far is cross-functional project management. Cross-functional, that's typical for an internal project. You see the example here where we have a set of department managers here. They are all part of a division inside an organization. And in these departments, you have a number of employees. Some are a bit smaller here, like Department 3, where Department Manager 3 has only 3 employees, while Department Manager 4 with a bigger department has 6 employees here. An interesting thing about department managers is that in many organizations, not in all, but in many organizations, their power, their influence inside the organization, maybe even their self-esteem is linked to the size of the department, to the number of people in there. So if Department Manager 4 has more employees, particularly in older organizations, in more rigid organizations, it's very likely that Department Manager 4 will also have more influence here. It's about the budget that they manage. It's about the span of control. The many people they are responsible for, the part they have in the value creation inside this division. Department Manager 4 is more likely to have a higher percentage of that, there's a higher contribution to value creation. And another interesting point is more about soft things. If you think of rumors, of the grapevine radio inside the organization, it's more likely when a rumor goes around that Department Manager 4 will hear this early, because these are the person's eyes and ears, of course. And they are also the person's mouths. How do you spread a rumor inside an organization? You tell your employee 4.1, tell them, hey, I have something to tell you, but don't tell anyone else, but there is something. And then the employee is going around and telling other people. And the more people you have under your control, the easier it is to do that. It would be much more difficult for Department Manager 3 to spread rumors or to hear it early when rumors are going around. So department managers very much look at span of control. They love to have large departments. And now we have a problem. The problem is that many projects are cross-functional, which means they take their staff, including the project manager, from different departments inside the organization. And at least temporarily, for a department manager, this means some kind of loss of control, loss of influence inside the organization. Temporarily, of course, but that's something they do not like. And I think that's the same for department managers all around the world. Doesn't matter whether they are in Europe or in Asia or in Africa, USA, they are the same, men and women, younger department managers, older ones. I think they are more or less all the same. Culture, by the way, plays another big role. Cultures are in many organizations different. So that's another big thing, culture. But if the culture is more rigid, more traditional, then department managers will not like to give people away for a project, even temporarily, because it reduces their influence, their contribution to value creation inside the organization. This all goes down a bit. And this is where Clara so far was working in. You may know from the PMI guide, most of you are PMI guys, I think, and ladies, of course, you know the term matrix and weak matrix. What is a weak matrix? A weak matrix is a situation where the role of the PM, the project manager, is more that of a coordinator. In discussions with line managers, such as department managers or division managers, they are rather in a weak position here. The availability of the project manager, project management team is rather part-time availability. Sometimes no one is really available for the project. In a weak matrix, the divisions, the departments are strong, and they have the priority. If they need the person, then this person will be with the department, and the department is not happy to give someone away full-time, so they make part-time positions out of that. I saw projects at a value of, the last one I saw was 150 million for an industrial plant, for chemical industry, a huge plant, and the project manager was expected to do it part-time, 150 million. Project managers in a weak matrix organization often don't have an own budget. The budget is with a sponsor or with some other functional managers. The project managers expected to manage time, schedule, to manage maybe people, human resources, maybe also machinery and software and other things, but not money. Staffing procurement in a weak matrix is typically not done by the project manager. Typical for a weak matrix is if I need a team member, someone we don't have yet in the organization. If we have to hire someone, it will not be me as the project manager to hire this person. It will be our HR department. If I need contractors, I have to walk to the purchasing department so that they get a contractor on board for me. So I can't really do it on my own. Resource availability is not only low, it is unreliable. As a project manager in a weak matrix, maybe as a project coordinator, often they're called like that. It's not only that it's hard to get people into the team, get them on board. You have them promise that someone will work for you in January, and now you receive a phone call, sorry, I can't work for the project in January. So it's very unreliable. You rely on people working for you, and maybe you don't even know it, that they already do something different. And this reduces the reputation of the project manager. That's missing in the PMI guide, by the way. In this situation that you see here, how do you want to run a successful project with such a weak power situation? People help you if they think it's appropriate, but if they don't think that, then you're left alone in here. And this reduces the reputation of the project manager. That's very typical, by the way, for internal projects, not for all internal projects. There are exceptions to this rule. Can there also be strong matrix? There are several examples of projects that are in a strong matrix organization. And one of them actually is customer projects, the topic here. The majority of customer projects, not all, not 100%, majority is rather in a strong matrix. Project managers are really project managers. Sometimes they are called program managers, not because there's a program there that they manage. It is to give the customer the feeling of an upgrade. No, you don't get a cheap project manager. You will have an expensive, high-performing program manager. In customer projects, it's quite normal to have a full-time project manager for comparatively small projects because they bring money home with projects. This is the income of the organization, and the organization wants this income stream to be well working, to be functional. They don't want to have the project manager in capacity conflict with some line work also. The project is the most important thing here. Project managers often have their own budget. In a customer project, developing a budget is very, very simple in all forms of contracts. Think of a fixed price contract. The customer will pay us $100 million. We want to pocket in 20 million of that. So 80 million is the budget. That's very simple to make. Project managers often do their own staffing. If they need someone, they get this person hired and get the person onboarded. If they need contractors, they find their own contractors as subcontractors, of course. And they go out and find them. It's part of their project management work. And when they need resources, they are available, and the availability is much more reliable. If a department manager promises me that his or her employee will be available for me next January, then I can rely on that because I bring money home. You don't mess around with people who bring money home. And this leads to a much higher reputation of the project managers. I met in my seminars, I'm a trainer by profession. I met project managers, of course, from both sides, from weak matrix, strong matrix side, from internal projects, customer projects, some of them changing between these two sides. That's also experience I had in my own life. And they all confirm, particularly those who know both sides, they confirm in a customer project, you are in a stronger position than in an internal project. Could there be a balanced matrix? I think that's the ideal situation where you have line managers and project managers sitting together and talking about use of resources, availability of resources, and so on. It is rare. And another impression I have is it doesn't last forever. It takes a lot of energy from people to go forward to the other side, to give your hand to the other side and say, hey, let's sort these things out together. And both sides have to do that. It takes some energy to keep this alive, and goodwill, of course, trustworthiness. Weak matrix, as I said already, is rather common for internal projects, while strong matrix is common for customer projects, with some exceptions, by the way. So the world of Clara so far is the weak matrix. She has learned to navigate inside the organization like a fish in the water. By the way, I stole this from Mao Zedong. He said this about the revolutionary. The revolutionary has to move among the people like a fish in the water. And I think the same is true for project managers. Project managers are somehow revolutionaries. Right? So what she's very good in is things like stakeholder orientation, servant leadership, all these big topics that are often discussed today, being persuasive, talking with people without power, but being persuasive, and on this way, meet your goals. She has social skills, a lot of self-control, but now something happened. Her company fired her just from one day to the next. What has happened? The company gave her project to an external provider. The company said, hey, it's in much better hands if we give this to a contractor. And with all her skills, her knowledge, her behavior, interpersonal competency and professionalism, with all that, she's jobless. She has to find a new job. Not a nice situation. She thought a while about that and said, hey, if companies do projects for paying customers, customer projects. By the way, some people say customer facing project. It's not just customer facing. It's not just the project facing a customer. It's a different type of project, completely different what we're doing here. It's a profit center. If project managers are hired for that, then I could try to find a job there as well. Bringing money home with projects. Can it be that difficult? To give you just the answer, yes, it is. I have some numbers on that, and in this diagram, I want to show you some numbers. These are my freshest numbers that I have at the moment. This is just September 2021, 3 months ago, not fully 3 months ago, where the Project Business Foundation that focuses on these topics and where I am president, we made a survey, global survey asking people, what is your past experience and what are your future expectations for make or buy decisions? In the past, have you observed a tendency more towards buy or more towards make? And what is your expectation for the future? By the way, I did precisely the same survey about 4 years ago, and the results are very, very similar, very similar. And what we see is on the right-hand side, this is where you find people buy more. By the way, a question, Taras, can you see my mouse? Is it visible? Taras? Sorry to disrupt you. Can't hear me. Okay. On the right-hand side, we see there is more buy. People had a tendency in the past, and the expectation is for the future. There will be more buying than making than in the past. Yeah? And we see the blue columns and the red columns have an overweight on the right-hand side. Actually, it's 2/3. 2/3 is on the right-hand side. So this is a very, very strong trend that we see here all around the world. By the way, I can dig deeper into these numbers, and you see it's really all around the world. There is not a world region which is different also. It's all around the world. It is small projects and large projects and so on. We can really go into details here, and we find that this is a very, very strong and very reliable trend. What does it mean? If companies buy things that they would have made themselves maybe 10 years ago, if more and more companies do that, if this is the big trend, this means that we need more contractors because someone will have to do that. The right-hand side will be contractor business. The left-hand side, where it's more towards make, this is something which will become an internal project. And yes, some go this direction. Some try to get projects back from contractors, but we see the main trend is in the other direction. And again, it was the second time that we made that, and the result in both surveys was exactly the same here. Some of you may ask whether they can have the slides so that they have the hyperlinks in here. Yes, you will get the slides so that you can follow the hyperlinks. I just had here. Here, this is the source. It's a bit small because it's difficult on a slide to pack it here, but you will have these sources with the slides from me. So Clara came to a decision. Whenever buy is chosen in a make or buy decision, this creates a customer project for a contractor. I want to do that. I want to run a project as a profit center. If this is the future, this is my way to go. And soon she found a new employer. Actually, it's quite easy to find jobs in this field for good project managers, because these are projects that need project managers, and the contractors need them quickly because they have to fulfill a contract with the customer. So they need good project managers to run these projects. And she found a project. And the first change that she noticed is that she now has not just one company that that she has to work for. She has two. One is the customer. She has to do the project for the customer, for the paying customer, of course. But her employer is not this customer. Her employer is a different company. So the contractor is actually her number one, but most of the time she works for the customer. Where contractor and customer have the same interests, that's relatively easy. That's not a problem. But often they do not have the same interests. And this can make things difficult because she then has to make a decision whom to follow. She had to bridge disputes, maybe even legal disputes between the organizations. They have different commercial interests. It could be that they are in different countries, maybe in different world regions. They may have national cultures, corporate cultures that can be very, very difficult. My experience with customer projects as a trainer and from time to time as a consultant is, this is one of the big topics that we have, a misunderstanding between organizations, because what is considered normal in one culture may not be normal at all in the other culture. And then they talk about things such as respect. Yeah, you don't have enough respect. You don't communicate clearly enough, and so on. And then these different cultures are clashing. And it's very, very hard for the parties to get out of these disputes because they never learned it and they don't ask for third-party help. Processes and tools in use, that's another important thing. Whose processes will be used in the project? Maybe the customer has a set of processes for their projects that they use, and maybe software products. The customer uses Microsoft Project. Now the contractor has a different set of processes and uses another software, Primavera or whatever it is. And now you have to bring this together. One side has to learn the processes, the tools of the other side. Whenever you try to, with software, for instance, when you try to import, export data, these data get changed. It's no more the same thing on the other, in the other system. So it's getting lost here in translation, language, but also software. Communication styles differ from organization to organization. Data protection, data security, these interfaces between two or more organizations can become a weak spot in security. And another big thing, that's one of the things that I remember when I was young, I remember most was big egos. You have a big ego on customer side, you have a big ego on contractor side. You want to run a great project and the two can't find an understanding and the entire project is suffering from their clashing of egos. And you sit there as the project manager and think, hey, I want to have a good project and I want to make both sides happy. You make it impossible for me. Then another thing is Clara was confronted with legal terms. I have some examples here of the terminology that we use in project business. And often people don't know what it means. What is privity of contracts? Sometimes they believe they understand it and they don't. And this is the most dangerous thing. Or different people have different understandings. Again, countries is an important thing. Ukraine is a civil law country. Germany is a civil law country. UK is common law. America, USA is common law. Canada is common law. Mexico is civil law again. We have different legal environments where even the meaning of contract is not the same. And what does she know about that? Nothing, because this is not part of our education so far in project management. Clara had to deal with contracting, which has a worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is if things go really, really wrong. This can end at court. And she has to be aware of that all the time because all the mistakes that she makes can be used against her company in this worst case. This worst case is not that frequent, I know, but it's also not that rare. It happens. Clara spoke to her new manager and said, hey boss, if you want me to bring money home with projects, I have to talk with you about things like education. I need to learn more about that. I'm not really prepared for that. So what are the specific challenges? We will see Clara later again. The problem is that we have two sides or more, at least two sides, working together here. One side is the customer. What are the typical expectations of a customer? For the money they are prepared to pay, hopefully. They expect reliable performance from a vendor. They expect to be treated as a VIP customer, not as someone in the waiting line at a cash desk, cash terminal in a supermarket. I want to be VIP customer as a project customer. And agility in the supply network. Supply network is a term we use similar to supply chain in manufacturing, where they have supply chains. We have complex networks. They emerge. They are not engineered. Supply chains are always engineered. These networks are rather developing, emerging somehow. One company hires another company and they hire a subcontractor and so on. And the difficulty is you need this entire network to go with you when you have change requests, for instance, or when you have a sudden problem that needs resolution. You need them all. You need them all. the contractor has expectations and has goals and objectives too. One of them is we want to have a happy customer. I think that's for, I hope, all contractors, almost all contractors. That's an important thing. You want to make the customer happy. Customer happy means for today, we are not running into legal conflicts. For the future, the happy customer may help us find new other customers, and maybe they need us again. Maybe they come back and want more from us. But then we have to make a profit from the project. Without profitability, it doesn't make sense to be a contractor at all. And project business is high risk business. This means it's not just a little profit. It is really, it must be profit enough to also cover our risks that we have here. And then the last one, nowhere else discussed apart from the Project Business Foundation and me, of course, is the topic of cash flow. It's very, very normal that the contractor lays out money for the customer. They need this money back. Their financial background, their financial cushion that they have to do that is limited. They have credit lines as well. At one point, they don't get any credit anymore, or the money that they have on the bank, at one point, it's gone, but they still have to work for the customer and lay out more and more money. Cash flow is a topic for contracting, of course, of payment terms, but cash flow is also a topic of the behavior of project managers. I see it often enough that project managers don't have the documentation together timely that allows invoicing to the customer. They have more important, more urgent things to do, things that bring more fun to them, maybe, I don't know. Yeah? But they have other things to do and don't have the time to put all the information together that is needed to send an invoice to the customer. So it's often an internal problem, not just a problem between contractor, customer, what is in the agreement, what is in the contract. Often it is an internal and organizational problem as well. There is something that contractor side project managers have to look at that customer side project managers don't even know. Customer side project managers have nothing to do with that. Contractor side project managers, it's one of the big topics: cash flow, liquidity, and of course profitability. Oh, liquidity may be more important than profitability. When I look at organizations, contractor organizations going insolvent, I see more often the problem that they run out of liquid money than that they run out of profit. And often, of course, the two come together. So we have to bring this together. We have two sides with different interests, different view on this business, but they want to do the business. Both sides want to do the business. And there is something that is linking them again, and that they have in common. They want to have a great project. Let's talk about this later, because I think that's the big key here. I have some more numbers for you here. This was actually the same survey, the green ones, the dark green here, dark cyan ones. This is the recent one, and this is my older survey that I did in 2017. And the direction is so interesting. The question was, what percentage of your work, of your project work, is done by contractors? With, you see 5 steps here between our own people do all the work. So nothing with contractors, and contractors do all the work. Yeah? And the interesting thing is 50% or more is done by contractors. In 2017, we had 55% here, 54.8. Now we have almost 2/3. This is not only a growing business when we ask people what is the tendency with make or buy decisions. It's also when we ask them what's really going on in your project. And this is a market for contractors. And I think at the same time, we see the number of contractors going up. Unfortunately, I have no numbers on that. And that's something you cannot do just with a simple survey. You need statistical data for that. I don't have any statistical data from any country here. I said already, project business, customer projects is not just customer facing project. It's not that simple. It's a different world we are in, different requirements that we have to meet when we do customer projects. And I have a list here, and actually this list is even longer. It goes down here, as you see. And the differences are really many. And I wouldn't even consider this list complete. I'm pretty sure there are some more aspects that have missed my attention so far, that I haven't seen so far, because it's really so many. The differences is big. I think the biggest difference, I go back up again, the biggest difference is whether the project is a cost center. Internal projects are typically cost centers or profit centers. Profit center means it has to bring money home here. As I said, you can have this all, and if you have questions, I'm easy to find in LinkedIn, or send me an email, oliver@oliverlehmann.com, and I'm happy to answer them. I already talked about project supply networks. What does this mean? We are in a similar world here to manufacturing or service providers, where they have supply chains now. They are engineered, they are orderly. Sometimes they don't work that well, as we saw in the last couple of months, because there were problems in the supply chain. So they are somewhat vulnerable, but at least those people involved there, they know what is happening there. They know what is going on there. I live not far away from BMW. A supply chain manager at BMW, he's on the buyer side. He knows what second tier, third tier subcontractors are going to do in February next year. And they can exactly tell you when their components will be made there, when they will be delivered to the higher tier and then to the next tier, and when they will arrive at BMW, at what gate, in what numbers, in what quality, and so on. It is engineered. And it's a very well managed discipline. And they have education, they have literature, they have certification, they have standards. It all began with standards, by the way, standardization. ISO 9000, EDI, if you remember these times, 30 years ago, roughly. They have this all. So what is our situation? Our situation is we have similar things, we call them project supply networks, but no one is engineering that. They just emerge. The customer gives some business to a contractor. One of these contractors makes a decision, I need subcontractors, and they may subcontract that, and so on. This prime contractor here, the customer may not even know that it is a prime contractor, or the customer may know it, but has no idea who is on the next tier. And the customer says, hey, I don't want to have to know that. That's why I have this prime contractor here. But this means in the end, no one really knows who is inside this network. There are companies in there that no one expects there. And I saw some very even funny situations here when a company had in their project supply network, their most important competitor was working in their project, in their lighthouse project. The competition was already in there and they didn't even know that. In some countries, we have things like slavery again. Well, I grew up with the impression, the opinion, slavery, that's a thing of the past. That's over. It's been over for hundreds of years now, and now we find out it's not true. It's still there. Do you want to have such organizations who make business on slavery? Do you want them in your project? Probably not. So that's a difficult thing here. Oh, by the way, this prime contractor is an interesting situation. The prime contractor is at the same time a contractor to the final customer, but is also a customer of the subcontractors. It's a classical ham in the sandwich situation. You get pressure from both sides. Buyers want to make things cheaper. Yeah, the customer tries to put down the price, while the subcontractors come with new demands for money and more and more and more. And you sit in the middle and your position gets more and more uncomfortable. Sometimes it's a perfect situation. Sometimes it is dangerous. As I said, project business is high-risk business for all parties involved. Another difference when we look at internal projects is how we expect to realize benefits from a project. I have two situations on top here for internal projects. One of them is a single delivery project, a classical tunnel or a bridge or so. It must be finished, then you hand it over to traffic, and then the benefits can be realized from that. If we have something like staged deliveries, another term for that is incremental delivery. We have this in agile methods very often. This means in the end that the benefit realization lifecycle somewhat overlaps with the project lifecycle. Several deliveries here. The first delivery begins the benefit realization, but still here as well, most of the benefit realization is expected in the future. For a contractor, this is totally different. The benefit realization for the contractor, the typical, I have to say, there are other models, but the most common, most typical benefit realization life cycle begins with the first payment that the customer makes and ends with the last. When the customer is starting to realize benefits, the contractor may no more have any benefit at all out of that anymore. Again, there are different types of customer projects, and this is not true for all of them, but for the majority. This is the typical project business process, which commonly begins on the buyer side. They have an internal project and then make a make or buy decision there. That's where it all starts here. Yeah? Then they ask contractors for bids, proposals, quotations, and so on. You can say for offers. These are all forms of offers. Yeah? And some of them will do that. So there is some competition in here. Yeah? One of them will make the business. There will be a contract with this organization. In my example here, seller number one. And now they do the project for the customer. It may be the entire project that they have. It could also be that they do only part of the customer's projects. But from a seller's perspective, this is a customer project for the sellers. From the seller's perspective, this is a complete project, of course. There may be, after handover, closeout of the contract, and so on, there may be some additional business here. And in some industries, this can be quite relevant. Actually, in some industries, that's why they do it. They want to have the service at the end. But sometimes, I think more often it's the situation that that's it. Now the project business is over and we have to find a new project to get fresh money coming in. This model comes with a huge problem. At different times, we need to behave differently. During this business development phase, the focus is on competing. Of course, the sellers compete with each other, but there's also competition between the seller and the buyer. As a buyer, I want to get as much delivery, quality, service, whatever it is, for as a low amount of money as possible. As a seller, I want to have as much money as possible and work as little as possible for that. Keep it simple and cheap for myself. So this is a very, very competitive phase with all the organizations involved. By the way, this is not necessarily so. Strategic procurement is something that is really gaining influence on the market, where you avoid having this phase as a competitive phase. But the majority of situations, this is highly competitive. Now the contract has been concluded. Now what we find is a focus on completing. Now they have to work together. You remember the last talk, which was talking about trust. This is what you need now. Now you have to be trustful with each other, which, by the way, means they all have to be trustworthy. Because if you trust people who are not trustworthy, they will rip you off. So you need the right people here. And what we see is we have to change our behavior just in a moment. And that's difficult. I would love to see some scientific work, some scientific research on that, how good are organizations in doing that, in changing from competing to completing, and then next moment when they have some new business development, going back to competing, and so on. This would be an interesting question for big research. And then we have an education gap. I think this is the biggest problem that we have. We have people out there who are educated in business management. We have other people who are educated in project management. Business management people don't know much about project management. Project management educated people don't know much about business management. And I think even the majority in this field has no education at all, neither in project management nor in business management. What does this mean? This means they have to work with trial and error. But we are in project business management, high risk environment. Trial is expensive and error even more. Error can bring you to court. So let's get back to Clara. We'll see her in a moment, and let's show you one solution that I can recommend here. We have several such solutions, but one is called benefit engineering, helping customer in a problem, which is also a problem for the contractor at the same time. So the contractor resolves the problem by helping the customer. Benefit engineering is different to cost engineering. Cost engineering, we are running out of money in our project, in our customer project, we have to cut costs. There are some limitations for that, contract, for instance, law, maybe, customer happiness. So instead of that, what we offer is solutions that we identified while we work for the customer. When we work for the customer, we see so much problems they have. We see their weaknesses. We see unresolved troubles. We see risk that they have not addressed so far. Maybe we are able to help them. We have to know where we have strengths so that we can help them. And then we tell the customer, we found this. We just looked under the rug and found something. We opened the door and we're surprised what we find behind this door. And you should be surprised too. Let us help you sort that out. We define the solution, propose it, sell it, and then make it. And we tell the customer, we are happy to help you with this problem, but we have to talk about price again. We have to talk about deadlines and many other things. And this is easy today. The reason is managers are in a different situation than in the past. Typical focus of management in the past was, get the work done. Today, we see managers with a much more complex world, many more requirements that did not exist in the past, including legal requirements, including you have to take care of your language, how you talk to people. In the past, no one cared about that. So we find solutions when we know the customer. Clara told her boss, learning by trial and error, that's too dangerous. We need professional qualification for that. I have to learn how to do that. And her employer agreed with that. Seminars, consulting, coaching, literature, schools, seminars. And she learned that the cornerstones of successful project business is called mission success first. We have a joint mission together with the customer, and we want to meet the requirements together here. That's built on good faith and on completing over competing. Respect, another thing. And another important thing is, as a project manager in a customer project, you should have a phone number. You should have someone whom you can ask, hey, I have a problem here. I have a situation that I haven't had before. Can you help me? Can you help me make the right decisions, talk correctly to people? So what you need is someone to help you. You can't do it alone. So, and this was my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions on that.
Thanks, Oliver. It was really insightful, and I must say that it's full of content to be processed. We'll definitely take some time. Yeah, we'll definitely take some time after that also to process it a little bit. I have a question for you. I noticed that at least throughout my career is not that long, but still something to something that is possible to reflect on. A lot of service companies find the only way to build trust between them and the buyers, let's call it that way, uh, through integrating and injecting themselves as much as possible into the customer's business. So they become like the inevitable part of the customer business, you know. I have two questions on that. First would be, maybe you can share some more strategies on building the healthy relationship, and second, do you consider this strategy as a dangerous one, because a lot of buyers are scared by this approach because they don't want to, you know, to bring more foreigners to their business and become
Yeah,
dependent that much on the
yeah.
specific suppliers.
The dependency is a part of this risk. When I say project business is high risk business, this dependency, by the way, the mutual dependency, it's true for both sides. That's the big thing. What you describe is one structure of project business where you have a team on customer side, which is mixed from internal people and contractor side people. We also have totally different situations where the customer hands the entire project into the hands of the contractor, and the contractor does it for them. We have different structures here, and I will anyway give you the slide deck. I will put a link at the end where this is described. We have at the Project Business Foundation something which is called the Project Business Study Book, and there we describe those many different structures. I think what you describe is a difficult, can be a dangerous situation for both sides. One thing is the dependency of the customer from the contractor, but there are also other risks there. Customers, sometimes they start poaching the people inside their organization. They recruit these people away from the contractor, which is unfair, by the way. You should never do that. And I think it's bad practice, but it happens out there. So you have to be very careful how you do this business. As soon as you are aware of the risks and ask yourself, do I want to do this kind of business? Am I prepared to accept these risks, and how am I going to manage them? If you're in such a situation, I think you can do that, but you have to be very, very careful. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question will be the following. A lot of project managers consider part of their responsibilities, let's say, to be surrounded by the right people, right? So to bring the proper team to work on the project. And I believe that some of them will consider a lot of the things that you've been mentioning during the presentation, such as processing contracts, understanding the law requirements, etc., as a part of someone else's responsibilities. Like, oh, I need to bring the proper bid manager, or I need to bring the proper finance controller to the project, and delegate this whole responsibility to them entirely, right? Like if I'm doing, for instance, the big IT project or even the program, I shouldn't be like the senior developer, senior QA engineer whatsoever. So why should I know all these things about bidding and responding on the law documents, etc.? What is your stance on that?
I hear this very, very often, and we have this discussion indeed very, very often. My point is, who will be in the end responsible for the results? Who will have the responsibility whether the results are what is expected, what the customer is prepared to pay for? Will it be there on time, and so on? In the end, the responsibility of the project manager is to do the project. And if something is going wrong in the project, it will be the project manager's not only responsibility, you will be held accountable for that. So as soon as you give it away to someone else, things happen without your influence, for which you will later be held accountable. They may bring you the wrong people into your team. They may bring you the wrong contractors, subcontractors maybe, into your team. So I think as a project manager, people should be educated to take over this responsibility, because in the end, they will be held accountable for the results here.
Yeah, thank you. Makes sense. The question from our chat. When a person with business management moves to the project management, the case is clear. But how to get business management experience for these young people who are building their career in project management?
Think of other business areas. Book business. I love the comparison with book business. Book business is a similar business somewhat, but different business as well. The similarity is we have a product and we get money for the product. Now you have business people in there. What do they need to do? They have to learn the business. They have to learn the rules of the business, the processes of the business, the language of the business, terminology, and so on. They have to learn this all for book business. And this is still a simple business. You go into a shop, buy a book, you leave the shop and the business is done. That's all. Yeah, that's what they have to understand, how to be prepared for such a situation. In a project, you work for a customer, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and so many things happen during that time. We have such a complex business. So our project business managers should be better prepared than a book business manager. And they are not. Book business has all the education, everything you need. Whatever business you look at, you have it all there. You have wonderful trainers and you have literature and everything. In project business management, we don't have that at all. And by the way, it's a criticism I have against PMI and also IPMA at the same time, that they ignore this part of project management. And it's more than 50% today. It's not a fringe topic. It is a core topic of project management. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have a job to do here. I have to do this as well, by the way, as a trainer. This is something where I see a need to also to do more as a trainer. Yeah? And I'm working on that.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. This was very helpful, resonates 100% with what I face daily. Contract types are of paramount importance in the contract negotiation. What are your thoughts about this? Any tips or advice on approaching the choice of contract types?
It's a highly complex topic because so many factors come in here. The most important thing that I see is the distribution of risk and the distribution of control. The more control you want to have, the more you have to be prepared to take risk. And giving people risk without giving them control to manage it is an unfair thing. By the way, it happens all the time. Yeah. So always look at the balance of risk and control. And my recommendation is for all these things, get a third party on board, because internally, too many corporate interests make it difficult to discuss these topics objectively. Someone wants the business. The salesperson wants to have the business and wants to have the business now. Yeah? So they say, hey, it's all easy and so on. Then you have other people who start panicking maybe. Yeah? You need someone who has a very distant view on that. Many things are best seen when you're inside, but many things are better seen from a distance. And I think contracting is something that should be seen from a distance, or you should need someone to see it. You need someone there who can see it from a distance. Yeah.
Thank you. Then maybe the last question for now would be, in your project business foundation, do you have any remote trainings or self-paced trainings maybe?
We have a project business study book, and I will put the link into the slide deck that I will give you. At the end of the slide deck will be some links for you, and this will be one of the links there. We did some public seminars on that. At the moment, this is a bit silent because we have a new project running and it consumes all our resources that we have. We are happy to help organizations. If a company says we have 50 customer projects with 50 customer project managers, can you help us developing them further? This is something we can do easily. The difficulty with open seminars for individuals is it is a lot of work to organize. And at the moment, our resources are also limited. We are a small organization. We are not PMI, we are much smaller. PMI would not have a problem with that, but we have. So we have to focus our our internal resources on another big project that we have at the moment, and that we come out with maybe in 1 or 2 months time.
I see. Thank you very much, Oliver. It was a pleasure to
Charles.
hear you here. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful Congress. Remaining